we talked about how we respond to the joys that others share with us. But as I kept applying and thinking about that concept, it led me to wonder, do I really share my joys enough? And how do I know when and how to share my joy, and why don't I do it more? When I was thinking about this, I came across a couple of research studies that talk about two important aspects of this. One is that our desire to connect doesn't always result in us feeling connected, and sharing our joy can help us to connect and feel more joy. So one of these studies, it was really interesting, found that even when it meant giving up something, over 60% of people consistently chose shared experiences and giving something up over solo experiences. And the reason they most commonly listed was because they had a desire to connect with others. But we all know that just because we want to connect doesn't mean that actually happens. That study found that people chose shared experiences, but just sharing time and space together didn't mean that they felt connected. So we talked last time about how we can connect with others and amplify our joys by sharing them and being a joy multiplier, responding in an active and constructive way when others share their joys with us. So that type of interaction doesn't only provide connection, but also increases our feeling of joy. So if we know that we can respond to others to connect and increase joy, I often find that sharing my joys can still be difficult. I wanted to think about what keeps me from sharing my joys. And I had an aha moment when I realized a few different things that keep me from doing that, and some habits that can help me to share them more. So first, it can be hard to recognize the joys of each day. It can be hard because we go through all the things that happen in life each day. Second thing that keeps me from doing it is sometimes I'm excited about something, but I'm hesitant to share that excitement. I've realized that identifying and sharing my joys can be vulnerable because having something being a joy means that I care about it, and it can feel like there's danger in losing it. A lot of us, including me, might brace ourselves for losing something and that we don't let ourselves fully enter into moments of joy. The third thing that I've recognized happens with me is there's still that step of being willing to share joy. It often feels easier to be vulnerable by sharing the hard things than sharing the joys. So what do I do about these difficulties that I have? What do I do about why it's hard? How can I overcome the things that are hard for me about sharing my joys? Well, I found that there are 3 habits that help me. First is establishing a gratitude practice. Now, you might be rolling your eyes, and I know I have for a long time. It's been really hard for me to learn to establish a gratitude practice. But I recognize that one of the reasons I don't share joy is because it's hard for me to recognize those joys each day. It doesn't come naturally to me to look for and express appreciation for the things that happen each day. Gratitude practice often feels fake to me. But I've experienced a lot of different ways of doing this. One of the teams that I work with has a practice of starting each meeting with good news. And every person has a chance to share a piece of good news in their lives. And I often struggle to know what to share. But I find that the practice of asking myself, what good have I experienced today, reminds me of things that I often pass by. So one day it might be something I'm excited about that's coming up. One day it might just be that there's no sick kids at home and I can actually do the things I had planned. As I've tried to improve my personal gratitude practice, I've found much more depth of possibility in my everyday than I would have thought was there. So think about, how can you establish a gratitude practice? And this isn't about doing it just to do it, but what feels real and authentic to you, and recognizing the things that are good that you don't often see every day. Try some different things out. There's lots of tools out there that can help you, but try different things and see what works for you. The second thing that I found is really being willing to see the magic of joy. I'm often, like I said, bracing myself for losing something, for what's going to happen, and I don't let myself really fully enjoy those moments of joy. I've learned a lot from friends who are really talented at embracing the magic of joy and being willing to be present in the moment without bracing for disaster. So since that's not my natural habit, I have to recognize the thoughts that come when I am bracing for disaster and intentionally let myself be present and enjoy the moment. So this last week, some partnerships have happened that have a lot of exciting possibilities, but they are far from sure and they'll take a long time to develop. So I hesitated to share my excitement about that. Well, what if it didn't happen? Would that mean that I failed? I've realized that part of being able to embrace seeing and sharing my joy is also growing in my ability to care and be okay when the journey with something or someone I care about might be long, it might be winding, it might have lots of ups and downs. To not restrict joy to when things are just the way that I want them to be, but to be willing to let joy and sorrow coexist because they both come from caring. Mindfulness practices help me to recognize how I care and to resist the temptation to push aside caring so that I don't get hurt. I love how Brené Brown talks about this. She says, get deliberate. When I'm flooded with fear and scarcity, I try to call forward joy and sufficiency by acknowledging the fear, then transforming it into gratitude. I say this out loud. I'm feeling vulnerable. That's okay. And I'm so grateful for this. Doing this has absolutely increased my capacity for joy. End quote. And I find the same thing in my life. I find that when I am willing to acknowledge what I care about and what is joyful for me, although it might feel vulnerable, it also allows me to really be present in the moment and see the magic that happens each day. The third habit that I found helpful is to practice intentionally sharing joy to strengthen relationships. Now that doesn't mean that I'm going to share with every single person that I come across, but once I recognize more of the joys of my life, I need to develop the practice of sharing them. Sometimes it can feel easier to be vulnerable by sharing the hard things. But one day I realized I wasn't sharing much of the things that I get excited about each day with the people that mean the most to me. And maybe it's because I don't want to seem like I'm bragging. Maybe I don't want to minimize the hard things that are happening for others. Maybe it just feels more acceptable to bond over hard things. And maybe I feel like if I share joys, it will seem like everything is perfect in my life. Whatever the reason is in the moment that I don't share, I've found that I can't fully share who I am with someone without also sharing my joys and the things that really matter to me. So it's my struggles and my joys. And when I'm able to share my joys with someone and they share and respond to my joy, a connection sparks that allows me to just be me, both the highs and the lows. So think about for yourself what keeps you from sharing joy. If it's some of these same things, try out some of these habits this week. See what happens. I'm still working on sharing my joy, but I've found power in sharing my joy and responding to the joy that's not accessible in other ways. Let me know how it goes. Can't wait to hear.